we were in a staff meeting one day, and Pastor Louis Giglio, he was leading a team meeting, and he loves space things, guys. And when I say space, I'm talking about like up in outer space, like the moon and spaceships and all that kind of stuff. And so the whole room was themed out space, and Louis was giving us a pep talk, which he's great at doing. And as part of his pep talk, he shared a quote from Neil Armstrong. And I want to read the quote to you. He said, he was talking about how people accomplish the impossible. How on earth did you guys end up on the moon in the 60s? How does this happen? And this is what Neil Armstrong said. He said, the way that happens, and the way that made it different from other sectors of the government, to which some people are sometimes properly critical, is that this was a project in which everybody was, 1, interested, 2, dedicated, and 3, fascinated by the job that they were doing. And he said, whenever you have those ingredients, whether it be government or private industry or retail store, or in our cases in a church, he says, you're going to win. And Louis had said to us that day in that meeting, he said, if we want to accomplish all that God has called us to do, we won't get there alone, which is true. You know this. It requires an army of people who are, and he put it this way, interested in the work that they're doing, dedicated to the work that they're doing, and fascinated by the work that they're doing, right? They still got an excitement, a creativity, and awe to the work that they're doing. And he said, if that becomes true in our church and in the area that we're leading, he said, then anything is possible. And he asked 2 important questions. He said, can those be said of you? Are you interested, dedicated, fascinated by the work that you're doing? And he said, and then can those be said about the people that you lead? He said, can those be said about the people that you lead? And then in true Louis fashion, right, he rallied the troops, everybody, rah, rah. And then he prayed and the meeting was over, right? Like that was, and I was left asking, okay, how do we do that, right? Like, how do we get people interested, dedicated, fascinated by the work that they're doing? And so thankfully, Louis prays, meeting ends, and he met with some of the directors that were leading different departments in our church. And we got to sit down and we asked him, we said, Louis, okay, that's amazing. We want that. And, I feel that in my own life, interested, dedicated, fascinated. I'm still as excited about reaching people who are far from God. Like I want that to be, I still have a passion for it, but how does that happen in our areas? Like I want that to be true of the areas that I'm leading and the people that I'm leading. And so Louis, when he was sitting down with us, he was like, well, I've been just poring over the book of Nehemiah. He's like, I've been poring over the book of Nehemiah, and I think it's just really, Reed, he was like, I think it's vision. He said, vision is how you get people to share the same interest, dedication, fascination that you've got. And he said, all through the book of Nehemiah, you see this rhythm. And since him saying this, I've read over it, pored over it, and you see it. He says, Nehemiah catches a vision. He says, then Nehemiah carries the vision. And then after Nehemiah carries the vision, he begins to cast the vision to others. And so you see a catch, carry, cast. And then you guys, it repeats. So Nehemiah catches the vision, Nehemiah carries the vision, Nehemiah casts the vision. Then the next group of people, and you'll see it in like one of the most boring parts of Nehemiah, but it's everybody taking their place on the wall and they list all the names. And you read that and you're like, why is this in here? But each person goes to their basically part of town and they begin to rebuild, and they invite the neighbors and they invite the friends and they invite family members to join them on the project on the wall. And so what Louis pointed out is if you do this well, if you catch a vision and you carry it and you cast it, then what happens is the next group of people behind you will catch the vision, and then they'll carry the vision, and then they begin to cast the vision to people and in places that you're never going to walk, right? In their workplace, in their neighborhoods, in their friend groups, in their family. And so he's like, this is the rhythm. This is the rhythm to get people interested, dedicated, fascinated by the work that they're doing. He goes, it's cast, catch, carry, cast, cast, catch, carry, cast when it comes to vision. This is how we raise up interested, dedicated, fascinated people that all of us need serving in our churches and our environments. And this is how we move people from consumers to contributors, from benefiting from our environments to actually participating in. Now, you guys were all listing your vision and your church's vision statements, which is amazing. And some of those are so awesome. The get rich or die trying made me chuckle. And so you guys all have your own visions. And so this talk today, I'm not going to talk to you about crafting your vision statements. You've got great ones. And there is this guy named Andy Stanley who wrote a book called Visioneering, and you can check it out, right? Like, so if you're looking to craft a more sticky vision statement, but all of you, I loved, you had one sentence, it's sticky, it's clear. You're great at that. What I want to talk about for a little bit today is how do we better cast that vision so that people catch it and carry it, and then so that they can turn around and cast it to people and in places that you're never going to go. Because ultimately that's what we want. And so I've got a few thoughts on this and some things that we've been trying and some things that I've taken from my time at different churches and in different settings that we're doing that I think are going to be helpful. Hopefully they will be. At least you'll be able to hopefully take one of these things and either apply it or reapply it in your context to be able to raise up some vision carriers who become vision casters, right? That's what we want. So some tips for casting vision, some thoughts on casting vision so that it gets caught, carried, and cast by others. The first thing that I want to say about vision casting that's important is this: say it, and say it again. Right? Repeat it. Many of us communicate vision, you guys, and you know, we do this at our church too, where it's like you kind of do your once a year vision night. You get all your volunteers together, or maybe you do a series at your church about your core values or your vision, and we do it once a year at a training event or something like that. And there's worship, and there's candles and a powerful story, and it highlights, and there's people that cry, and it's so powerful, right? And you're like, yes, they've got it, right? Like, I did it. I killed that. People are like, oh yeah, we gave them all the keychain that's got the little statement on it or whatever. And so we're like, yep, they've got it. And then 3 months later, we've got people asking us, I just don't know where we're going or what we're doing. And you're like, are you serious? Like, you were crying that night, and so you're like, what is going on? And you see people not living it out. And so I just want to remind us when we're talking about casting vision so that it sticks and gets carried, that vision is not a one-time event. It's not a one and done deal. And you may have the stickers and you may have the magnets, and it may be posted somewhere in your offices or on your wall, and maybe you gave out the keychains once. But for vision to stick, it must be repeated. For vision to stick, it must be repeated, and it must be repeated consistently. You guys know this. Vision that isn't repeated will quickly be deleted in the mind and the heart of your leaders. They're getting messages all the time. So vision that's not repeated will quickly be deleted in the hearts and minds of your leaders, your volunteer, your staff. And so some ways that we're doing that, and I'll tell you guys just some ways that we're trying to cast it consistently and say it all the time. There's a few different things that we're doing at Gwinnett Church. So I'll just give you some ideas. One of the things that we're doing is we have, instead of a offering moment in our church, we now call it our vision moment. So the time of offering in our church services, we now call those vision moments, because we believe that that generosity follows vision. To put it more bluntly, money follows vision. So money follows vision. And so we've found that that rather than just asking for money every single week, it's more compelling to cast vision every single week and then to tie that to what their generosity is going towards. And so every single week in our church service at Gwinnett Church, we have our vision time, and we try to we tie it to what our church is all about. Hey, we want to inspire people to follow Jesus by showing them that God is for them, by being for them. And so we have a phrase around our church. It's for Gwinnett. We want to be for Gwinnett. We're so for our community, and we believe that by being for our community, people are going to get a glimpse that God is for them as well. And so we cast vision in that moment. We share stories in that moment. We give people steps in that moment, and then we tie that to generosity. Hey, when you're generous here, you're helping to accomplish this vision in our church and in our community. And so we do that every single week, vision moments at our church. Another thing that we do, and this is one of the things that Duncan and I had a lot of good conversation about, is now quarterly I do something called Vision Carriers. And it is a gathering of all of our highly invested people in our church. And we get them together. We're about to have our next one coming up in March. And when we do this, basically every ministry area tells us a list of people that we should invite based on people that are kind of ticking our 3 boxes of engagement, giving, serving, and grouping, and then also inviting is kind of a 4th one. But people that are engaged in those, we say, hey, who are the people under your leadership that are doing those things? We invite them. Our current roster is like about 285 people that get invited to that. It rotates, we add to it. And they come to this event, and at the event, we literally rehash the vision of our church. And we go over the vision, and we refresh the vision for people, and we repeat it, and we say it, and we say it again. And at the meeting flow, you guys, it's business meeting meets worship service. And so at this Vision Carriers event, I'll show them the P&L of our church. I'll show them where their money's going. I'll show them where we're over, where we're under, all that kind of stuff, fully transparent. So we go over the finances, we go over celebrates, we go over numbers that we're looking at as a church, we go over attendance, we go over baptisms, all that kind of stuff. And then I do a vision talk where I just remind people of the vision. It's almost the same talk every single time, right? Just with a different spin, which is what we're all having to get better and better at. And so we cast the vision, we cast the vision, we cast the vision. We remind people why we're here, why our church exists, what we're all about. And then we send them off with prayer, worship, and a challenge. And so we do this quarterly because we think that vision that's repeated sticks. And I'm sure we can have some time later to talk more about that, and you guys can ask me questions about details about that. But so I'm not suggesting that you have to do more events. I think that our calendars are all busy. What I'm suggesting is that we seize more of the opportunities, though, that we do already have. Every meeting, every leader huddle, every volunteer email, every group me that you're a part of, it's an opportunity to inspire and to repeat your vision. And so look for the opportunities that currently exist and start to view those as vision casting opportunities. In all of your communication with those you lead, I want to challenge you. Don't just give information, but also look for opportunities for inspiration, especially when you're in person with anybody. You've heard the old adage, emails are for information, in person is for inspiration. So look for those opportunities to cast vision. Vision's always leaking, must constantly be refreshed and refilled. And so repeat it as much as you can. Say it again. This is one of the ways that vision gets caught so that it can be carried, so that then it will be cast. The next thing after say it and say it again, the next thing that's important is that we model it. The one way to help those that you lead catch the vision is for you to model it for them. You help others see what you mean by showing them through your life, right? And so a question that I am regularly asking our staff and myself, and God hit me with this, the other morning on a walk. And when I say the other morning, that's preacher talk for like sometime in the past 2 years, right? And so the other morning, God hit me with this question, and it was, if everyone engaged in the vision like me, what kind of church would we be? If everyone engaged like me, what kind of church would we be? And it's a question that y'all, pretty much every staff meeting once a month, I'm asking our staff that question. If everyone engaged like me, what kind of church would we be? If everyone grouped like me, if everyone gave like me, if everyone served like me, if everyone invited like me, then what kind of church would we be? And so it's my way of challenging them to model the vision for other people to see, right? I help others to see it by showing them through my life. And so just some examples. We've got values around our church. And so one of our values is that visibility and availability lead to credibility. And so we say that to all of our people that stand on stages. We tell them, anybody that's leading worship, anybody that's speaking, hosting, anything like that, we tell them, hey, visibility and availability lead to credibility. And so for our staff and contractors, we're telling them all the time. And our volunteers, we're saying that all the time. But in order to make that stick, in order for them to catch that vision, what they've got to see in me. And so I try to make it a point. The 15 minutes before the service, you guys, I make laps through the church. I'm walking the aisles. I'm greeting people. I'm shaking hands. And some of you will say, oh, well, those 15 minutes before are the moments where I'm looking over my notes. And I would just say, look at your notes harder the night before, so then you can walk around and shake some hands and actually live out visibility and availability, right? So view that as an appropriate call out. I'm not saying there's not room for looking at your notes the morning of, but for me, that's what I've had to do. And so, but if I want my people to catch it, I've got to do it. So I'm walking the halls, trying to shake hands, remember names. I'm writing down the names of 3 or 4 people that I meet that morning. So then I write them a handwritten note afterwards to let them know, hey, I'm so glad you go to our church. It was so nice meeting you. I try to remember a detail about their family or their life, and I just write them a note. And so as I'm doing that, though, our contractors, our worship leaders, our other staff that are on platform opportunities, they're seeing it modeled from top down, right? And then they're able to catch a glimpse. They're able to catch the vision, right? Another example of this might be, we say in our guest services team, we're like, hey, we deliver wow through service. We deliver wow through service. We deliver wow through service. Like that's one of their value statements on our guest services. And so Brooklyn, our guest service director, and her team, they go above and beyond in their leader trainings, though, to deliver wow to their leaders through the way that they serve them, so that the leaders catch the vision when they're coming to the trainings. And so they come to the training and they get wow through service. So then they get a picture of what it looks like on a Sunday. And so when we go above and beyond as staff for the volunteers, then the volunteers are then encouraged to go above and beyond for the attendees. And it's this trickle down effect. And so we got to model what it is that we hope to see. And so a great question to be asking yourself and your team. If everyone engaged like me, if everyone lived this out like me, what kind of church would we be? If everyone lived it out like me, what kind of church would we be? So that's a great question to be asking yourself and your team. Another way that vision gets caught so that it can be carried and then cast to others is if we celebrate when we see it. Celebrate when we see it. You've heard it said, you've all heard this. So this is not new. Again, I'm passing this on, but I'm just telling you, this has become more important now than ever, especially as people are coming back to your church after 2 years and they've lost sight of the vision. They've lost sight of what you were all about in the first place. I mean, every week, you guys, I have people coming back right now and they're going, it's my first time back. I'm like, we've been going again for 2 years. And they're coming back, and it's my first time back in person. And they've lost a little bit of sight of the vision. And so what we're having to do, this is another one, is to celebrate when we see it. If we want people to catch and carry the vision in our church and in our ministry area, then we should celebrate every opportunity we can, those that are doing it well. If we want them to catch it and carry it and then cast it, celebrate the ones that are doing it well. And this means that we always got to be on the lookout for those that are carrying the vision well. We've always got to be on the lookout for those that are carrying the vision well. Some ways that we're doing this at Gwinnett Church. Every staff meeting and every director's meeting starts with a celebrate. It starts with celebrate sections. And what we do with our celebrates is in our staff meetings, you're not allowed to celebrate your department. So you don't celebrate a win in your own department. Like, oh, we just had, our middle school weekend and we had 350. Yay. Like, that's not the celebrate section. The celebrate section in all of our staff meetings and in all of our director meetings and in our volunteer huddles is celebrate someone you saw carrying the vision. Celebrate someone you saw living out the mission of our church. And so what we do in our celebrate sections and our staff meetings is they celebrate cross-departmentally. So they'll celebrate somebody else that was embodying the vision of our church. Hey, an example this week would be our middle school team did have their middle school weekend, but they celebrated our adult ministries team for showing up, serving, and getting leaders to come and help clean up. And so they're celebrating across departmentally, right? They're celebrating somebody else that was living out vision and mission. And so, yeah, that's an important thing that we do. Some ways that we kind of do this as well. We've done it in different ways to celebrate staff. We've done everything from personal thank you notes. I think if you're a lead pastor or if you're a department leader, it's a great idea for you to be writing thank you notes every week. You should have it on your list. Find 3 people worth celebrating that were living out the vision and write them a handwritten note. I try to do it every Monday. I ask every director, I say, who are some people in your environment or that you saw this week in our church that were living it out? And so I take it and I write them a note and I say, thanks so much for living out the vision. Thanks for being for Gwinnett in this way. And I'm very specific in it. Thanks for being for Gwinnett in the way you showed up for that family. Thanks for being for Gwinnett in the way that you invited those friends. Thanks for being for Gwinnett in your generosity. Thanks. And I just repeat it and I celebrate them personally. And then that trickles down and our directors do the same. Another way that we do that, so thank you notes, we also kind of do, we do like a player of the week, which is like a, man of the match, if you will. We do that. We have little helmets. I can get you one real quick. I'm going to step off of screen. Let me show you this real quick.
This is so exciting.
We have these little American football helmets. And when we catch a staff member doing something great, we give them a helmet sticker. And that's like, hey, you were living out the vision. You were living out the vision. You were living out the vision. And so we celebrate them with the helmet sticker. They get like a little moment of recognition in staff meeting. And it's like, you were getting it. And those people, you guys, when they get celebrated for it, that behavior gets repeated. And they want to do that, to carry that, to cast that. And so, yeah, we do that. That's just a visual example of some things that we do in order to celebrate people that are carrying the vision. And then those people inevitably, when they get celebrated like that, they're inspired to then carry the vision and cast it to others, right? So celebrate often, celebrate consistently, do that, and I promise vision will start to stick. And then the last thing that I want to share with you, number 4, when it comes to vision sticking so that you can get people that cast and carry the vision in your church, this is just a reminder for you all, is that nothing sticks like stories. Nothing sticks like stories. And I know sometimes, like, we think that the stickiest thing that we can have is like a tweetable vision statement. And I think that it is good for it to be repeatable and short and concise, but nothing will stick like a story. People might remember your catchy tagline if you repeat it enough, and you should. But a story sticks like nothing else, right? Like a story of the vision of your church coming to life is it. The one of the most clear and compelling ways to make vision stick is through the stories that you tell in your church. Stories move the heart, and they motivate the hands. And so as a church staff, something that we need to continually do and teach our teams to do is to become better storytellers and story finders. Honestly, we need people to be better story finders and better storytellers. It's everyone's job to find and to tell the stories. That's something that we try to reiterate to our staff all the time. Be on the lookout for stories, because I think, sometimes as the lead pastor, you want to get up there in a vision moment, like in our church. Like when I get up weekly and do the vision moment, and I'm like, all right, I haven't gotten to sit in all the environments, so I may not have a new story this week, right? So that's where the rest of my team and the rest of our church helps me out by going, hey, we heard this story. And so I'm constantly, we have a Slack channel that is 4 stories in our church. And our staff are encouraged every single week. Hey, if there's a story that you heard, that you were a part of, that you witnessed, that somebody passed on to you, drop it in the Slack channel. And so I'm constantly getting stories. And then if I read it and I need some more details, I'll reach out to that staff member. Hey, tell me more about that story. Like a most recent one, this week, I just was informed that we gave away our first 1-year chip in our recovery program. We launched our recovery program this past year at Gwinnett Church. North Point Ministries has had recovery for a while, but we launched it here at Gwinnett Church last year. And so launching the program, we've been getting people coming in, and this year just this last week we gave out our first 1-year chip, which was amazing, celebrating 1 year of sobriety for a person in our church. And the person leading that environment shared that story with me. And since then, I've gotten the chance to meet with that person and talk to them. And now that story is going to be shared 2 Sundays from now in a vision moment, right? But that's helping us cast a vision. And the way that we're doing that is just by telling our staff, hey, you got to be story finders so that we can be better storytellers. And so we leverage stories in as many venues as we possibly can. Staff meetings, leader meetings, giving moments, dismissals are all opportunities for you to share stories in order to tie them to vision so that it sticks. And then another thing that I want to encourage you, if you've got a great story, repeat it and relive it as many times as you can. Find different ways to use that same story. If you've got a really, really great story. We had a really incredible story about the power of groups with a guy in our church. His name was Bird, older gentleman. He passed away recently, but he led a group of guys. And when he led this group of guys, it made such a difference on their lives. And now each one of the guys that Bird was leading, each of those guys now lead groups in our church. And so we filmed the video of them talking about his legacy. And y'all, we've shown that video in 10 different environments, in different meetings, different moments. And we've been able to share that story and talk about the power of community and the ripple effect that it has in lives and families. And so if you've got a great story, don't be afraid to repeat it and to relive it in a lot of different environments. But encourage your staff and live it out yourself to be a good story finder and a good storyteller, because if we're all looking for and unearthing stories, then it makes our church better. And that's more vision to cast and to be caught and to be carried and ultimately to be cast by others in places that you're never going to walk. So in recap, repetition, modeling, celebration, storytelling. These are ways that we cast vision in such a way that people catch it, that they begin to carry it, and then they in turn cast it in the circles that they run in. And this is how we raise up people, you guys. If we'll utilize this and we'll cast vision well, consistently, then this is how we'll raise up people who are interested, dedicated, and fascinated by the work that's happening in and through your church. And y'all, there's amazing work, interesting, fascinating work happening in and through your church. We just got to get better at sharing it. And so this is how we help move people from consumers to contributors, and from spectators to participants. And so the last question that I want to give you guys to ponder with your teams, and this is something that another vision caster, an amazing leader that I've gotten to sit under, Jeff Henderson, he used to ask us this all the time when I was the student pastor here in regards to vision. He would say, because vision is something that needs to be constantly cast and repeated, he would ask us this question. He would say, what am I doing today to cast vision for my church? What am I doing today to cast vision for my church? He gave us all a sticker, and it sits on our computers, and it says, how am I for Gwinnett today? How have I been for Gwinnett today? And he would say that vision casting doesn't happen occasionally, it has to happen daily. Vision casting doesn't happen daily, it doesn't happen occasionally, it has to happen daily. And it doesn't always require a stage or a microphone. And so the question that you need to be asking yourselves is there a way I can communicate the vision today? Is there a way I can model the vision today? Is there someone I can celebrate that's living out the vision today? Is there a story that I could find or that I could tell today in order to cast the vision to my people so that it gets caught, carried, and then cast by them? You guys, if we can become better vision casters, we can create vision carriers who will then cast the vision to people and in places that we are never going to walk. And in turn, the vision grows and is expanded, and people are drawn in and they want to know more. And this is how we can create these interested, dedicated, fascinated people and see the impact of our church ripple out. So that's the content for right now. In my closing prayer for you guys, I just want to pray, and then Duncan, I guess you can take it from here if you want to do some Q&A, and I'd love to talk with you guys a little bit more about this. But in my closing prayer, I want to pray that God would birth or reignite in you a passion and a burden for the vision of your church and the ministry that you lead or the ministry area that you serve in. I want to pray for you that you're personally interested, dedicated, and fascinated by the work that you're doing. And so I want to pray that, because that's got to be God birthed, right? And then I'm going to pray that you guys then can take that and you can cast it so that others catch it and they carry it the same. And so I'd love to pray for us, and then we can get into some Q&A. So Heavenly Father, thanks so much. Thanks for these leaders. Thanks for the work that they're doing. Thanks for the vision that you put in their hearts and in their minds. Thank you so much for the work that they're doing. It's important work. God, I pray that you would reignite or help them to fan into flame the passion for the work that they're doing, that you've called them to. God, I pray that they would be interested, dedicated, and fascinated personally. Because if they're not personally interested, dedicated, and fascinated, then that's never going to spread to anybody else. And so would you ignite that inside of them? And then God, would you help us to consistently, repeatedly cast the vision to our people. Help us to model it and live it well. Help us to celebrate the ones that are doing it well. And God, would you help us to unearth stories, to find and tell better stories that are embodying the vision and the mission of our churches, so that other people catch a glimpse of it of the work that you're doing and the work that you've called us to, and are inspired to then join in and be a part of it. Father, we love you. We trust you immensely. Help us to take something from today and to apply it in our settings so that we're better for it, and our churches are better for it, and our communities are better for it. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Reed, what you said is so helpful. And I'll tell you why it's so helpful for our leaders. I think every one of the leaders who are listening to this would say, yeah, I do that. Maybe once a year, once every 2 years. We kind of know as leaders, we're supposed to cast vision and we're supposed to tell stories, and we should celebrate when it goes well. And I know I should be modeling it as well. But it's not consistent. And I think why this is so useful is the things you do on a regular basis, the things you repeat, that's what gets rewarded time and time again.
Yep.
And so I really appreciate you saying that, because I think for us as leaders, we're all sitting there going, I have done that. I don't do it as often as I should. I mean, the thought of writing a thank you note every week to someone in your church. Yep. Fantastic. Let me throw some questions to you. There's some questions around the thank you notes, which is fascinating, but some questions around, I want to go back to what you said earlier on about the Vision Carriers event. The two questions that jumped out were, who do you choose to come to those events? Number one, and can anybody come? Is it just a general invite, or do you say, no, you can't and you can? And how often do you do them? Remind us how often you do them.
So we do them quarterly, and we don't, it's not like check your invitation at the door. So, but it is an invite only event. So we don't publicize it on a Sunday morning that Vision Carriers is coming up. So you get an invitation, and the way that people are invited is I ask every ministry area leader to give me a list of names of people that are carrying it out and they're engaged. And when I say engaged, I mean giving, serving, grouping, and attending and inviting, right? And so I say, who are those people in your area? And so they give me a list. So our middle school pastor, our high school pastor, they'll send me a list of their volunteers. They're like, these people are doing it. And then I'll send them an invite from myself. And so they get invited, and the list is regularly updated consistently.
And the event itself, do they just come and sit in rows and watch the stage and then walk out again, or is there food? And you said that music.
Yes. So to keep it cost effective, we don't do like dinner. This is not like a dinner. We usually do coffee and maybe some kind of a snack at it. But we try to keep it like cost effective, so it's not like a OMG, holy cow, like crazy event. It's So, and we sit them at round tables. We usually do round tables so they can have conversation, because every single one that we do, because it's quarterly, so there's 4. So at them, we always give feedback cards. What are we doing well? What's an area that you'd like to see us improve? And where's an area where we can be more clear?
Okay, so one other question that jumps from that is, maybe this is an Irish thing or a British thing, but when some of our churches have done this kind of thing before, the danger is it becomes a place where the moaners get a chance to have a megaphone and infect everybody with their whinging. I mean, does that ever happen? Do you ever get people who, it's my chance to say what's wrong with this place and what we need to do differently? Does that ever happen? Or how do you stop that happening?
Yeah, we don't open up the floor it's not open mic night. We give people the feedback cards, and then I make sure that I follow up with everybody that offers feedback. And so I'll follow up individually with people. The only thing that I open up the floor about is if people have a question on clarity about the finances. So outside of that, at their tables, we celebrate heavy on the top. So we celebrate off the top. We let different ministry areas talk about things that have been going on in their environment. So we celebrate heavy on the top. We go over the finances, we go over the attendance, and then I give a vision cast, and then we worship and we pray, and I give them specific things that I want us to be praying about in unity. And then at the end, the last 5-10 minutes, I say, hey, there's a feedback card. If there's something that you want to offer some feedback on, please fill that out. And I do follow up. And then if I'm consistent in following up, people still feel heard. So it's not an open mic gripe session.
That's good. That's helpful. That's great. And just, many of our churches are from different church traditions, and some of them would have membership where you become a member of the church. Does Gwinnett, does North Point, do you have membership? How do you tell whether I'm in or I'm out? How does that work?
Right. So we don't have membership. We have what we call fully engaged. That's the goal for everybody in our church. We want you to be fully engaged. And we consider that giving, serving, grouping, and then we would say attending as the other point right there, right? So someone who's fully engaged is participating in all four of those things.
Good.
And so those people, that would be equivalent to a member, right? That's what you would hope for all your members. Not that they would go through a membership class and then attend once a month and maybe give when they feel bad. You know what I mean? Like, you want somebody that's active in those four things. And so we call those people fully engaged. That's what we're looking for our Vision Carriers event, are the fully engaged people, or at least 3 out of the 4, right?
Sure. That's great. Does someone's just dropped on here? Does attend include watching online?
It does.
Great.
It does. I mean, we have people that we have now. I will say it's hard to serve watching online. So fully engaged, they got to find some way to serve. It could be with one of our community partners, but yes. So attend does include watching online. Okay,
great. Going back to the vision casting idea, just 2 or 3 more questions, and then we'll get into our church teams to talk. Going back to the vision casters idea, how do you, Jamie asked this great question, how do you define the difference between vision and mission? I mean, are you casting vision, or are you casting mission, or is it both the same thing?
I mean, so there's the vision of your church, which the vision of our church, inspire people to follow Jesus. Our mission, hey, we're going to be a church that unchurched people love to attend, right? So I think both are important, and you should be casting them both. You should be reminding people who you are, what you're doing, why you exist. And then you may have other ministry area specific vision little things, you know what I mean? Like I mentioned, the availability and it leads to credibility. Visibility and availability leads to credibility. That right there is just a vision for our service programming department. So that's a vision statement, you know what I mean? But I think vision, mission, they are different, but you should be repeating them both.
Yeah.
Vision is the overall.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Okay, a couple more questions. Funneling these down a bit into more specific. So for many of our churches, most of the people that are doing the work are volunteers. They wouldn't be on staff. So Andy's asked the question about how do you cast vision with volunteers who are busy teachers or stay-at-home mums, or working in offices and only have a finite amount of time that they can offer. How do you cast vision with those people that aren't around you all day long? And how do you cast vision with volunteers?
Yeah, I think that's great. Those are the people that you want to catch the vision, because they're spending most of their time in the places that you're not, right? Yeah. So those are definitely the people you want. I think you have to leverage the moments that you do get with them. Every single moment you've got with them is a vision casting opportunity. And then also your other means of communication. We've been given this gift of technology. And so whether it's through your emails, through a group me, through text messages, through writing them a note during the week and actually celebrating in them, that's where the thank you notes come in, Duncan, is when I write a note to a teacher or a stay-at-home mom or somebody that's in the workforce, and I celebrate a way that I've seen them living out the vision in our church on a Sunday, and they get that note on a Wednesday, that's a vision deposit. And I never had to be in their presence. They didn't have to meet me for coffee. They didn't have to go out of their way. They got a note. And when they get that note, I can't tell you how many people that say, hey, I've got that note that you sent me and it's on my fridge, or it's sitting on my desk, and I couldn't believe that you saw me do that, right? It may be the way you see a volunteer or someone at your church on a Sunday the way that they personally walked somebody down to an environment, or the way that they took time to sit after service and pray with somebody that was really obviously going through a hard time. And you see that volunteer and you write them a note and you say, thank you so much for making that person's experience at church this Sunday. Or thank you so much for treating that first timer the way that you treated that first timer. And you deposit that on a Thursday or on a Tuesday. That's a way that you're casting vision to that person so they can catch it and carry it throughout the week.
It's great. It's great. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think one of the most underutilized powerful tools in vision casting is what you talked about, the email. I mean, we send emails all the time, and to put a line on the bottom. I mean, when I send emails, I often, say, thanks for being part of this journey of creating churches that unchurched people love. And you're just reinforcing.
Totally.
And so we're church pastors. We're sending 10, 20, 30 emails a day. It's 10 or 20 or 30 opportunities to cast vision. It's great. One final question, then we'll get into groups. Jamie, again, great question. These thank you notes get powerful things when you, from the lead pastor in particular, but the leader of your department, when you get everybody gets text messages, but when you actually write a note or a card, powerful.
Right.
Do you do it multiple times, Jamie asks? So what if you see me doing something great and you send me a card, and then you see me doing something great the following week? Do you send me a card again? I mean, how often do I get a card from you?
Right. Yeah. That's a good question, because sometimes the same people are just crushing it and they're incredible. I do try to diversify who I'm sending them to. And I keep kind of just like a note, knowing how many times I've sent somebody something. I do the same thing with people that give extravagantly generous gifts, but there's some people that do that every month. And so I don't write them a note every single month saying, thank you so much for that. I'll write them probably every 6 months. So I'll spread it out, and I'll thank them again 6 months from now for that rhythm of generosity. So I probably won't celebrate somebody that's just doing a great job every single week. I'm not going to write them a note every single week. I'm looking for opportunities to celebrate as many people in our church that are living out the vision, so then more people carry and cast the vision.